Jack-o'-lantern, the last house on Maple Street. Halloween night always felt quieter on my street. Maybe because Maple Street sat at the very edge of town, the kind of neighborhood where the air smelled like wet leaves and streetlights hummed just a bit too loud. Every year I'd buy a couple of bags of candy, light the pumpkin on my porch and wait for kids in costumes to knock. Most years they stopped coming before 9. That night it was already 10:45 when I blew out the pumpkin candle. The street had gone still. The wind carried a few pieces of paper down the pavement. Candy wrappers, maybe? I turned off the porch light, locked the door, and went to make some tea before bed. Then someone knocked. 3 soft taps. Not impatient, not loud, just deliberate. At first I thought I imagined it. But then came another 3. I sighed, grabbed the bowl of leftover candy, and opened the door. There on my porch stood a boy. He couldn't have been older than 10. His costume was a bit old-fashioned, black cape, white shirt, and a red bow tie, like some old Dracula movie. The mask he wore was plastic, cracked near the mouth, one side of it hanging slightly loose. I smiled awkwardly. "Hey buddy, you're out kinda late, huh?" The boy didn't answer. He just held up his candy bucket. It was empty. I dropped a few pieces of chocolate inside. "There you go. Don't stay out too long, okay? Your parents'll be worried." He nodded, or maybe it was just the wind pushing the mask a little, and turned away. I watched him walk down the street. But the strange thing was, he didn't go to the next house. He just kept walking straight ahead, down toward the cul-de-sac, where the street ended in a dark cluster of trees. No houses down there. Just woods. I frowned. "Hey kid, the other houses are that way." He didn't look back. Something about his slow steps, steady, dragging slightly, unsettled me. I wanted to shrug it off, tell myself kids did weird stuff all the time. But that sound, the scuff of his shoes against the pavement, kept echoing long after he disappeared behind the trees. When I went back inside, the house felt colder. I checked the thermostat, still 72. Maybe it was just nerves. I made my tea and tried to forget the whole thing. At 2 a.m. I woke up thirsty again. I walked past the living room window and stopped. Out on the sidewalk under the streetlight stood the same boy, still in his black cape, still holding the empty bucket. He wasn't moving, just facing my house. I blinked, rubbed my eyes. When I looked again, he was gone. I barely slept that night. When I finally fell asleep, it felt like I'd only closed my eyes for a moment before the alarm went off. Morning sunlight filtered weakly through the curtains, and for a second, the night before seemed like a bad dream. But when I opened the front door to grab the paper, something stopped me cold. Right there on the porch lay the candy bowl I'd left out last night. I was sure I'd brought it in. Inside were the same chocolates, but unwrapped, melted slightly, and stuck to the bottom. Someone had touched them. I set the bowl down, trying to tell myself maybe I was just tired. Maybe I had forgotten. Around noon, the neighborhood Facebook group was full of Halloween pictures. Smiling kids, costumes, decorations. I scrolled idly until one photo made my stomach twist. It was from my neighbor 2 houses down. The caption read, "Can't believe how real this costume looked. Creepy little Dracula kid grinning face with sweat." In the photo, kids were walking up her driveway, and there he was, in the background. The same boy. Black cape. Plastic mask cracked near the mouth. Only this time, the boy wasn't walking toward her house. He was turned away, facing mine. That night, I didn't bother putting candy out. I kept the lights off and watched TV, volume low, trying not to think about it. Around 11:30, I went to lock the front door again and paused. There were footprints on the porch. Small, muddy, leading straight to the door and none going back. The next few nights passed quietly. No knocks, no shadows. I started sleeping better. Then 5 days later, I woke to the sound of a door creaking. I froze. The front door? No, it came from the kitchen. I grabbed my phone, heart pounding, and crept down the hall. The kitchen light flicked on. No one was there. The back door, though, was open just a crack. Cold air slid across the floor. I shut it fast and locked it, double-checked every window. Everything seemed untouched. Still, I called the police, mostly to calm myself down. 2 officers arrived, did a quick walk around. No signs of forced entry, no footprints, nothing missing. They told me to install cameras and get some rest. I tried. But at 3:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. A notification from the motion sensor I'd placed near the porch. When I opened the app, the feed showed a single still frame. The boy, standing by the front door again. Only this time he was closer to the camera, his mask completely off. And underneath, there was no face. Just a smooth, pale surface where eyes and mouth should have been. By morning, I still couldn't convince myself that what I'd seen was real. I told myself it was a glitch in the camera, a trick of light, maybe even a Halloween decoration someone had moved as a prank. Anything but what it looked like. I called the police again. The same officer from before showed up, bored, half awake. He took a look at the screenshot I'd saved. Looks like a costume, he said. Without a face? He shrugged. Maybe a mask. Kids pull weird stuff around Halloween. You said it yourself, could be a prank. He gave me his card and told me to call if it happened again. But I could tell he didn't believe me. That evening, I decided I wouldn't sleep. I made coffee, turned on the camera feed on my laptop, and sat by the living room window waiting. Midnight came. 1 o'clock. Nothing. The neighborhood was dead silent, just the soft rattle of dry leaves against the pavement. At 2:11 a.m., the porch light flicked on. The motion sensor again. I stared at the screen. The camera showed only my porch, empty. Then after a moment, the video flickered like a brief static wave. When it cleared, something had changed. The candy bowl I'd left inside the house now sat on the porch. I hadn't moved it. I went to the door slowly, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Through the peephole, I saw nothing but the faint glow of the streetlight. I hesitated, hand on the lock, then finally opened the door a crack. The bowl was there, full of candy again. The wrappers gleamed under the porch light, new, unopened. On top of them was something small and white. A photograph. It showed my house, the front door, and me, standing exactly as I was right now. Same shirt. Same posture. Same door halfway open. The photo was warm. I dropped it and slammed the door shut. Every instinct screamed that someone was close, too close. I ran to the window, looked out. Nothing. But I could feel eyes on me somewhere in the dark. When dawn came, I found the photo gone. The bowl was empty again. That morning, I saw a headline in the local paper. Halloween cold case. 15 years later, police reopen investigation into missing boy. There was a picture. The boy in the vampire costume. Same cracked mask. Same empty eyes. And under the photo, the caption read, "Last seen near the end of Maple Street, October 31st, 2008. For the rest of the day, I couldn't stop thinking about that article. I kept telling myself it was a coincidence, that hundreds of kids dressed like vampires on Halloween, that cracked plastic masks weren't rare. But deep down, something inside me knew. That night, I didn't turn off the porch light. I couldn't. Every time I passed the window, I half expected to see him standing there again, small, silent, with that cracked smile. I even thought about leaving town for a few days just to clear my head. But around 11:50 p.m. I heard the knock. 3 soft taps. Exactly like before. My body went cold. I didn't move. I just listened. Another 3 taps. Slow. Careful. I took my phone, opened the camera feed. The porch looked empty, the light flickering slightly. Then just as I was about to close the app, I saw it, the edge of a cape, barely in frame. I set the phone down and stared at the door. My mind screamed, "Don't open it." But my hand moved on its own. The lock clicked, the hinges creaked, and there he was. The boy. Same costume. Same cracked mask. Only now, up close, I could see the skin under the mask, pale, almost gray like candle wax. His eyes were sunken, unfocused. He held out the bucket again. "Empty." I whispered, "What do you want?" He tilted his head, the plastic mask shifting slightly with the movement. Then, in a voice so faint it sounded like air escaping from a balloon, he said, "You forgot." The word crawled down my spine. Forgot what? He took a small step forward, until his shoes were at the edge of the doormat. I stepped back. His hand reached into the bucket and dropped something onto the floor, a small piece of candy still wrapped. Then another. Then another. The same kind I'd given him that first night. He pointed at them. "You didn't say thank you." My breath caught. You're not real," I stammered. The boy tilted his head again and the cracked mask slid off completely. Beneath it was a hollow face, not monstrous, not supernatural, just empty. A skull-like outline of a child whose skin had forgotten how to live. He blinked once, slowly, then turned and walked off the porch, down the street, back toward the trees. I slammed the door and locked it. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I stayed by the window until dawn, waiting to see if he'd come back. He didn't. The next morning, I found something at the edge of my driveway. A photo again. This one older, yellowed, faded. It showed a group of kids in Halloween costumes. The same street. The same porch. And there, in the background, was me. Only the date at the bottom read, October 31st, 2008. The year the boy disappeared. I moved out 2 weeks later. They say every Halloween, someone new moves into the last house on Maple Street. And every year, just before midnight, there's a knock at the door. 3 soft taps. And if you open it, you'll see a boy in a cracked mask holding out an empty bucket, waiting for the person who never said thank you.
Hospital Ward C13. There's a reason most towns don't talk about their old psychiatric hospitals. They sit on the outskirts, swallowed by weeds, roofs caved in, windows like empty eyes. For years, kids dared each other to sneak inside, film videos, prove they weren't scared. We were no different. There were 4 of us, me, Jake, Luis, and Aaron. We ran a small YouTube channel, Urban Dark. Nothing serious, just exploring abandoned places, jump scares, fake ghosts. But when someone commented, try St. Mary's Hospital. Ward C13 still has lights on at night. We knew it would blow up, so on a cold Saturday night we drove out there. The hospital stood at the end of a cracked road, behind a rusted gate half buried in vines. The sign was so faded it barely read, St. Mary's Psychiatric Center. Most windows were smashed, and the inside beyond them was pitch black. Luis grinned, filming already. This is perfect. Bro, thumbnail's gonna kill. Jake climbed the fence first, flashlight clenched in his teeth. Aaron followed, whispering something about how she hated this place. Her cousin had worked security there years ago. Apparently, the hospital shut down after a patient riot in 1994. We entered through a side door. It groaned like something alive. Inside smelled of mold, old paint, and rot. The beam of my flashlight caught graffiti. Help US. Still here? C13, C13, C13. Someone's been here recently? Aaron muttered. The halls seemed endless. Wheelchairs overturned, beds rusted in corners, papers scattered like snow. A faint drip echoed somewhere, slow, rhythmic. We passed rooms labeled A1, B6, C9, until we reached a corridor sealed with a chain-link gate. A faded sign above it read, Ward C. Jake rattled the gate. Locked. Luis pointed. There's a hole in the wall to the right. Probably leads through. He was right. A section of plaster had collapsed, revealing a crawl space barely wide enough to fit through. One by one, we slid inside. Dust filled the air. It tasted like ash. On the other side, the corridor opened into darkness. The first door we saw was labeled C13, painted over, but visible through the decay. Bro, no way, Luis whispered. We actually found it. I lifted my flashlight. The door had a single small window shattered. The handle was rusty, but when Jake tried it, it turned easily. The door swung open. Inside was clean, too clean. The floor was swept, the walls freshly painted. In the center sat a plastic chair, not old, not dusty, like something from an office supply store. No graffiti, no trash, just the smell of disinfectant. Aaron's voice trembled. Did someone reopen this place? Jake stepped inside with the camera. Guys, check this. The door slammed shut. The sound echoed down the hall, sharp and final. We ran to it, yanked the handle. It didn't budge. Jake shouted from inside, his voice muffled. It's locked from your side. No, it's not. I yelled back, pulling until my palms burned. Then we heard it, the click of another door down the hall. And another. One by one they were closing, C11, C10, C9, each slamming in rhythm, moving toward us. Aaron whispered, There's someone else here. I turned toward the end of the hallway and saw a faint light flicker. A shadow moved past the far doorway. Not fast, just slow, deliberate. Luis whispered, Jake, is that you? No answer, only silence, and the faint hum of something electrical behind the door of C13. Jake, say something, I yelled, banging on the metal door until my knuckles hurt. No response. Only the faint hum continued from behind it, like the low buzz of an old fluorescent light. Aaron was trembling. We need to get him out. Luis, check the other side of the hallway. Luis ran ahead, his flashlight beam slicing through the darkness. Each door we passed earlier now stood closed, every single one. We pulled on the handles. Locked. All of them. I pressed my ear against C13's door. Jake, can you hear me? Something shifted inside. A scrape. Then another. He was moving but not answering. "Jake!" There was a pause. Then, very softly, "Don't open it." His voice was shaky, distant, like he was speaking through a bad signal. "What do you mean?" Aaron whispered. Static filled the silence. Then a sound came through, metallic, rhythmic. Clang, clang, clang. It wasn't Jake. Luis cursed under his breath. "Man, screw this. We're leaving. Now." We turned toward the crawlspace we came through. But it was gone. Or rather, sealed. The hole in the wall was now solid concrete, smooth as if it had never been broken. Aaron started crying quietly. "It wasn't like this before. It wasn't." I tried to stay calm, focusing on the sound from inside. "Jake, talk to me. What's happening?" Another pause. Then his voice again, lower this time. "It's not me." That's when the lights flickered. Once, twice. Then the hallway filled with a pale, flickering glow from the ceiling lights that shouldn't even work in a place abandoned for 30 years. In that cold light, we finally saw what was on the floor. Footprints. Not muddy or dusty. Wet. Fresh. Leading from the far end of the hall toward us. Each one darker at the center, like someone had been walking barefoot through water. But there was no water. The footprints stopped right at the door toward C13. The buzzing inside grew louder. I leaned closer and caught a glimpse through the small crack between door and frame. Something was moving in there. Not fast, just pacing. A shadow, steady, almost mechanical. "Jake!" I shouted again. The pacing stopped. Then, from the other side of the door, 3 knocks. Exactly like the ones on the porch in my last story. Luis turned pale. "That's not him." I wanted to agree, but before I could speak, every door in the corridor knocked back. One after another, perfectly synchronized. C9, C10, C11, C12, C13. Bang, 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 bang. Aaron screamed. We backed away until our backs hit the far wall. Then the lights cut out again. Complete darkness. I could still hear the knocking, but now it was closer. Not from behind doors anymore, but around us, as if something was walking the hall, dragging its hands along the walls. Luis whispered, "There's someone here, right now." In the dark, a faint sound came. A whisper, almost inhumanly close to my ear. "Patient 13. I froze, every muscle in my body locked. That whisper, it came from right behind me. Erin grabbed my arm so tightly her nails dug into my skin. Luis swept his flashlight wildly through the dark, the beam slicing across the hallway walls. For a split second, the light caught something at the far end, a figure. It stood completely still, facing us. A patient gown, torn and stained, hanging loosely off a thin frame. Its head tilted sideways, too far to be humanly comfortable. "Who's there?" I shouted. No response. The figure moved, not walking, just sliding forward, like each step didn't match the sound it made. Luis aimed the light straight at it, and it vanished. The hallway was empty. I turned back to the door of C13. The knocking had stopped. The hum was gone. Only silence. Then Jake screamed. It came from behind the door. Muffled. Panicked. He was shouting something, words broken by static. "Don't open, it's..." I didn't think. I grabbed the handle and yanked. Turned easily this time. The door swung open with a screech. The room was empty. The chair was still there, the floor spotless. But no Jake. No camera. No sign of anyone. The only difference was the faint smell, chemical, sharp, like fresh cleaning solution. Aaron's voice cracked. "Where is he?" Luis stepped inside carefully, scanning the corners. Then he pointed to the wall behind the chair. There, written in something dark and glossy, were the words, "Patient discharged." That was when the alarms went off. A deafening siren echoed through the entire ward. Red lights flickered, one after another. We ran for the exit, but the corridor twisted, literally shifted, like the floor plan was changing around us. The hall that once led to the crawlspace now ended in a blank wall. I turned around, shouting over the noise. This isn't real. It's some setup. Luis looked at me, eyes wide. Who would set this up, man? The place has been dead for 30 years. Then Erin screamed. She was looking through a cracked mirror on the wall. Reflected in it, the three of us. But behind us stood a fourth figure, motionless, head lowered, hands clutching the back of the chair from C-13. I spun around. No one was there. The reflection smiled. The mirror shattered on its own, and the lights cut out again. We ran blind, following the sound of the alarm until we found a door that opened to cold air. We burst outside, tripping over the broken tiles, collapsing in the parking lot. The siren stopped the moment we stepped out. Behind us, the hospital was dark again. No red lights, no movement, just silence. Luis vomited in the grass. Erin couldn't stop shaking. I turned back one last time. In the third-floor window, barely visible, was a light. A small, white glow. Someone was standing there. I lifted my flashlight. It flickered once before dying completely. But in that brief second, I saw what the camera never caught. Jake. He was standing in the window of Ward C-13, wearing the hospital gown, staring down at us. And taped to the inside of the glass was a piece of paper. In shaky handwriting, it read, "Discharge complete. We never found him." The police said the building was sealed. No sign of forced entry, no footprints, no video evidence. Every file we recorded that night was corrupted. I deleted the Urban Dark channel the next morning. But sometimes, when I can't sleep, I open YouTube and scroll through abandoned exploration videos. And every now and then, I find one I don't remember uploading. The title is always the same. Ward C-13, Patient Discharge Footage.
Evergreen tree 24 hours in the woods, and I wasn't alone. I always thought I could handle the woods. I wasn't some city guy afraid of bugs or darkness. I'd grown up camping with my dad, hiking through miles of forest, sleeping under open skies. So when I decided to start a YouTube challenge, 24 hours alone in the woods, it felt easy. Just me, a tent, a camera, and nature. The spot I picked was about 30 miles from town, a section of forest nobody really visited anymore. The locals said it used to be private land, owned by some old logging company. The trails weren't marked, but that just made it better for the video. Real isolation, real survival. I started filming around noon. "All right, guys," I said into the camera, 24 hours out here. No phone signal, no noise, just nature. By evening, I'd set up camp, a small clearing near a stream, surrounded by tall pines that swayed even when the wind didn't. The air smelled sharp, clean. I cooked instant noodles, filmed a few shots of the sunset, and told some fake ghost stories to make the video entertaining. Then I heard it, a branch snapping, somewhere behind the trees. I turned the camera toward the sound. "Probably a deer," I said with a nervous laugh. But when I zoomed in, there was nothing, just shadows. It wasn't until I reviewed the footage later that I noticed it. A shape between the trees. Not an animal. Not quite a person either. Something tall, pale, almost blending into the trunks. At the time, I didn't see it. I just packed my gear, threw another log on the fire, and tried to focus on the challenge. Night fell faster than I expected. The forest went completely black except for the orange flicker of my fire. No crickets. No wind. Just silence so thick it made my ears ring. Around midnight, I started hearing footsteps. Slow, deliberate, circling the camp. I pointed my flashlight, but every time I moved it, the sound stopped. When I turned it off again, there it was, crunch, crunch, moving just outside the light's reach. "Probably an animal," I whispered to myself. "Coyote or raccoon." Then something hit my tent from the outside, a soft, open-handed slap. I froze. Waited. Nothing. I stepped out slowly, holding the camera like a weapon. The flashlight beam cut across the trees, landing on something hanging from a branch. It was a small wooden figure, crudely made from sticks and twine. A face scratched into it with a knife, and carved into its chest, the number 1. I stared at it for a long time before lowering the camera. That's when I realized the figure wasn't alone. There were 2 more, hanging from branches all around the camp, swaying in the windless air. I packed everything back into my tent, zipped it shut, and stayed awake until dawn. When the sun finally came up, I went to take one of the figures down. But all 3 were gone. Only small patches of disturbed soil remained where they had hung. And in the middle of the clearing,
pressed deep into the dirt, were footprints. Bare. Human. Leading away from my tent, straight into the woods. The footprints looked fresh. The soil was still damp, edges sharp. Whoever, or whatever, made them had passed through not long before sunrise. I crouched down, filming everything. My voice on the camera was shaky. Look at this. Bare feet. Human size. It's not mine. I swear to God, it's not mine. The prints led away from the camp, deeper into the woods, toward a narrow trail I hadn't noticed the day before. I followed for a few meters, but the forest was silent again. No birds, no insects. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then I heard it, a single click. Like a camera shutter. I spun around. Nothing. But when I looked back toward camp, I could see my own tent between the trees, and next to it, something moved. A shape. Human-sized. Standing perfectly still beside the tent. I didn't breathe. Just watched. After a few seconds, the shape turned and slowly crouched down, disappearing from view. I ran back fast, the camera shaking in my hands. The closer I got, the more I realized the tent flap was open. Inside, everything was where I'd left it, except my camera bag. It was unzipped. My backup SD cards were gone. Someone had been inside while I was gone. That was the first time I thought about quitting the challenge. But pride or stupidity kept me there. I told myself it was probably a hiker, someone messing with me. Still, I packed up my tent and moved the camp closer to the stream, about 200 meters away. I filmed again around noon, trying to sound calm. Okay guys, something weird happened earlier. I think someone was walking near the camp. Maybe another camper. Anyway, I moved closer to the water, safer here. While talking, I noticed something floating in the stream. A small wooden shape. It was another stick figure. This one had the number 2 carved into it. I didn't touch it. I just watched as it drifted slowly downstream, the current spinning it in lazy circles before it disappeared around the bend. By evening, I'd convinced myself it was a coincidence. A weird prank, maybe. But when the sun dipped below the trees and the forest turned black again, that fragile sense of safety evaporated. The footsteps came back. This time closer. Circling faster. Branches snapping, leaves crunching. I turned the flashlight in every direction, but the moment I stopped moving, the noise stopped too. Then another click. This time louder. It came from behind me. I spun around, and for a split second, the beam of my flashlight caught something glinting behind a tree trunk, a lens. Someone was watching me through a camera. Hey! I shouted, rushing forward. But as I rounded the tree, there was nothing. Only a small Polaroid photo lying in the dirt. It showed me, sitting by the fire, taken from the trees, and written at the bottom, in messy black ink. 2 down. My hands started to shake. I dropped the photo and stumbled back to the tent. I zipped myself inside, locked the camera on record, and stayed awake, whispering into the mic. If anyone finds this, there's someone out here. They're watching me. I think they've been here longer than me. Hours passed. The forest never slept. At 3 a.m., I heard breathing outside the tent. Slow, deep, steady. I reached for the flashlight, but froze when I saw something pressed against the fabric from the outside. A handprint. Fingers long. Thin. Human. And right above it, scratched into the fabric with a knife, the number 3. The handprint on the tent stayed there for hours, smudged, pale, human. I stared at it until the sky started to lighten. Every minute felt like a lifetime. I didn't dare unzip the tent, not until I could see the faintest glow of morning pushing through the trees. When I finally stepped out, the forest looked wrong. Still the same trees, same stream, but quieter. Like the world was holding its breath. The air had that heavy, waiting feeling before a storm, except there were no clouds. The first thing I noticed was the trail of footprints again. Same size, same direction, but now they circled the tent several times before stopping at the stream. I followed them cautiously, camera shaking in my hand. There, on the opposite bank, was something new. A small pile of rocks, carefully stacked, balanced too perfectly to be random. On top of it, another wooden figure. This one carved with the number 4. I whispered into the camera. This means something. Whoever's been doing this, they're counting. I wanted to leave right then, but I couldn't. I was still missing my spare SD cards. And worse, my car keys were gone from my backpack. Someone had taken them. Panic set in. I tore through the tent, through my bags, through the dirt. Nothing. Just the faint sound of running water and my own ragged breathing. Then, that same click. This time, from just behind me. I spun around. No one. But pinned to a tree about 20 feet away was another Polaroid photo. I walked toward it slowly, every step crunching louder than it should have. The photo showed me asleep in the tent. The fire burned low beside me. In the bottom corner, written again in that same uneven black ink. "For down." My stomach dropped. I turned the camera on myself, voice shaking. "Whoever's out here, you win. I'm done. I'm leaving." I packed what little I could carry and started walking toward where I thought the car was. The trees all looked the same. The sun was behind clouds now, giving no direction. Every few minutes, I stopped to listen, but all I heard were faint footsteps behind me, always staying just far enough to make me doubt if they were real. After an hour, I reached a clearing I didn't recognize. In the center stood a fire pit, fresh, smoke still curling. Around it, dozens of those stick figures hung from the branches, spinning slowly. Each one carved with a number, up to 23. I stepped closer. The smell of burnt wood was mixed with something metallic. That's when I saw the last one, hanging right in front of me, carved deeper, clearer than the rest. 24. And tied around its neck, my car keys. The click came again. I turned toward the sound, heart pounding. Through the haze of smoke and sunlight, I saw someone standing there, just at the edge of the trees. Barefoot, holding a camera. They didn't move, didn't speak. The camera clicked one last time. Then they turned and walked into the forest. I grabbed the keys and ran. I don't remember how I found the car or how long I drove before I saw another person. I only remember the sound of branches scraping the roof, like something chasing me until the road finally opened up again. When I got home, I checked the SD card from the camera I still had. Most of the files were corrupted, all except one. It was a single photo, taken from behind me. I was standing in the clearing, holding the stick figure with the number 24. And just over my shoulder, in the blur of trees, there was another figure watching me, tall, pale, and smiling.